Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 60 of the Playoff Push podcast. I'm your host, Jack Dobbins, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Jon Heyman. You may know him from MLB Network, Sports Illustrated. He's been all over the place, one of the best voices in sports media. How are we doing tonight?
Good. How are you, Jack?
I'm doing great here. I mean, just finished my classes for the day. Just chilling up in my dorm, getting ready for this show. You went to Northwestern, got your degree, you went to Sports Illustrated, now you're at MLB Network as an insider. Can you just talk a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you're at?
Quite a long journey. You're right. Long is the word, right? At Northwestern, I started in Moline, Illinois, the Moline Daily Dispatch. Then I went out west, covered the Angels. First, I covered the Raiders for a year. They're right on TV right now as we do this
Absolutely.
against the Cowboys. 1 year with the Raiders. Then I switched over to the Angels, and I've been in baseball ever since. That was 1987. Went to Newsday, paper I grew up reading for 16 years. Left, went to Sports Illustrated for 5 years, then CBSSports.com for 5 years. And let's see what else. I was at MLB Network, but I've done that since 2009, since the inception. I did a startup fan rag for a while, which was nice. Only lasted 2 years, unfortunately, and went back to newspapers, the New York Post, about 4 years ago.
Man, that's crazy. So you've
It
worked
is
in
crazy.
newspaper,
Right,
you've
that is crazy.
newspaper, TV, all over the place. What would you say is the difference between, being on air for MLB Network, writing articles, Sports Illustrated,
Yeah.
and being in actual newspaper? What's the difference?
Yeah, newspapers is hard work. I would recommend TV if you can do it. I guess I got lucky to do some TV. That really helps. The number of hours and the pressure is not as great on TV. Certainly at the beginning, I wasn't very comfortable. Now I think I'm more comfortable. It's certainly a knack. Some people are great at it. I work with Greg Amsinger or people at MLB Network who are naturals, Brian Kenny. But I'm a newspaper guy first. Took a little while. Now I am more comfortable on TV, which I highly recommend. That newspapers are a tough business. They always were. It's particularly tough now. We've gone to the internet. It's certainly if you can get a job writing on an internet, it's a lot better because you don't have to have those deadlines. At the World Series, I was kind of filing the story right as the game ended, whereas the people at The Athletic or ESPN or Sports Illustrated, they had time to actually think about the story and realize what a great World Series it was. And, they had hours and hours to
Yeah.
really put it together. It makes a big difference. So I recommend that if you have the choice.
In those early jobs, in the newsroom. So I'm still a college student. What did you learn from, the veterans in the room? What really stuck with you to help you improve?
Okay, well, and it started in Moline. We only had young guys. We didn't have any veterans. So
Okay.
then I went to the Santa Monica Evening Outlook, and then it merged with the Daily Breeze. So we had some older guys at that point. But I think at Newsday, I kind of learned when I went there in 1990. I was 28. That was the paper I grew up reading. And yeah, there were some great veterans there at Newsday. Tom Verducci, who's probably only about 6 months older than I am. He looks about 20 years younger, but he's 6 months older. He does a great job. Very, very takes great care of the words. He's very precise with the words. And then Steve Jacobson. Newsday was a great writing paper. At one time it had been an afternoon paper, not when I got there, but it had been an afternoon paper. So it had a lot of people who were more writers than reporters, but they were really great at it. And I think that was a nice learning experience about writing. But eventually, uh, you know, you do what you're good at, and I guess breaking stories was kind of my calling card. So that's kind of what I did.
In terms of that, calling card for breaking news, what was the first moment where you realized the impact that you had in that sector?
I would guess that A-Rod story. You know what? The Barry Bonds story was probably the first big one that I can recall. That was December 7th, 1992, that he was going to the Giants. And that was a big deal. We were the first day at the winter meetings, and we had the story at Newsday that the Giants were the team that was going to get him unless the Yankees upped their bid. And I'm thankful for the Giants GM because people called him that day and he lied to everybody and told them that the story was baloney. And so nobody else really had the story.
Wow.
Thankfully, I didn't rely on that fellow, who was a very well-known liar, and I thank him for that, so nobody else could follow quickly. I remember there was a guy in the New York Times who I think reached out to, and at the New York Times, it was a big deal at the New York Times at that point. You can contact a lot of people, and they'd all take your call, and all 30 teams denied that they were in on it. But I think basically that they had offered this 43 million that we said Barry Bonds had offered, and but it was the Giants, and that became a big deal at that winter meetings, and breaking stories became of great interest. I mean, we Newsday emphasized more the writing aspect of it than the reporting. I can recall, maybe I'm not, I hope I'm not talking out of school. I recommended Ken Rosenthal for a job at Newsday when I was there, and somebody very foolishly told me, "Well, we decided not to go in another direction. We thought this other person was a little better writer." I'm like, "Oh my God,
That's
it is
crazy.
a newspaper. Let's try to get the news in the paper." Now, he wasn't the superstar that he is now, but I mean, I could see that it was coming, not to this degree, maybe, but um, yeah, they people aren't always great at hiring other people. I think that's true everywhere, but that was a particularly bad one, and I think I had a falling out over that editor that has never been corrected or changed since then. I was not too happy about the fact that we hired somebody other than Ken Rosenthal that I had recommended.
I mean, obviously, Ken turned out pretty well. I mean, he's one of the
I mean,
best of the best right
absolutely,
now.
he's the best. He's the very best. I mean, nobody works harder than him. He's got contacts everywhere. He does every job. He's working 24 hours a day. I don't think anyone's close. Some of the people who are the readers will say somebody else, and I know it is not that other person. It is Ken Rosenthal. He's the best.
Absolutely. I have a couple questions about, the modern MLB landscape. I'm going to lead off with what everyone's talking about. What is your personal opinion on the salary cap, and how do you think it'll affect teams if it goes into place?
Yeah, it's funny that the owners will want the cap. They're great capitalists, and most of them are billionaires. I guess if you count the value of the team, almost all of them are billionaires, and that they want kind of a socialist thing here, where they have a cap to determine the salaries. Look, baseball's gone this long without it. I don't think the players will give in and accept it. So I think it's a time waster, just like the players looking to get free agency after 5 years or arbitration after two. They're not going to get that either. I think they should just take them both off the table right now and get started rather than wasting all the time that they may waste on this cap.
It's hard to shift the culture when it's been that way for so long. You have to get like so much support behind it to really push it forward.
Yeah, I mean, look, baseball's never had the cap. I mean, I get why owners want the cap. I do think, other than the fact that it's kind of socialist, they probably think that it'll raise the values of the franchises, but the franchise values are way up. I mean, Steve Cohen bought the Mets for $2.4 billion. I bet they're worth 5 billion at this point, right? And that was only 5 years ago, right? Uh, that's a pretty good investment to double in 5 years. The Angels were bought for like under 200 million. They're probably worth 3 billion now, right? I know that was a couple decades ago, but that's a pretty good rise. That certainly rose more than my apartment. And most other things that you haven't had anything for 15 or 20 years, but if you've had something for 20 years, you hope it goes up. But to go up by 15 times, that's a pretty good investment. So they're doing pretty well now, but I think they see in basketball that the franchise values have gone up even greater than in baseball, and they probably attribute that to the cap, basically.
It's like a loose cap kind of. You just have to pay extra if you go over the cap, which then, there's an
Okay.
incentive
Oh,
to
they can
not do
find.
that.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's not really. Yeah, then that's not really a cap because there's a luxury tax in
Yeah.
baseball too, but I guess it's a little bit
It's
hard.
very similar, except the NBA pushes it further. Football,
Yeah.
it's like a hard cap. NBA, you go into the first apron, the second apron, And if you
Okay.
get into that, the
I
teams lose money. So
I
that kind of like
defer to
that.
you. I am not an expert. You know more than I do.
Yeah, they call it the aprons. I think there's only two of them. I don't think there's a third. There might be. I don't know if I'm being honest with you.
Okay. You know more than I do.
Do you think there's any merit to a salary floor instead of a cap for teams that like to keep the spending
Well, the
low? Do you
floor
think that
would
is any
go with the
push?
cap. They're not going to do the floor without the cap. So, yeah,
Okay.
if there's a cap, they should have a floor. Yeah, and in MLB, the owners even understand that. And, that might be an issue for the small market teams that are particularly cheap and don't want to spend any money at all. They might not want to do that floor. The union has been kind of pushing the Oaklands and the Miamis, the Pittsburghs, that they're going to be fined if they don't really try to spend money and try to win. And I don't know that any of it's ever come to anything significant and force them to actually spend. But if they did have a floor, they'd have to spend. And I think that's where they get the union, the owners would get pushback from their own constituency, probably from there more than, let's say, the Dodgers, who will just say, even if they have the cap and they have to cut play, they have to, start trading off players or, not signing players. They'll just say we're going to figure it out. We're smarter than everybody. We'll do a good job. I don't think they're really in favor of it, but I think they will kind of go along with it. Whereas the owners at the bottom end that are only paying a $60 million payroll, they're the ones who are going to push back. But I do believe the union is going to push back very strongly, and it's going to be very difficult. They've tried this before, and it's never panned out.
All right. Sounds good. So in regard to, let's just say, the current Yankees, with this offseason, it's huge. Bellinger's on the market, Tucker's on the market. They also have those young pieces. They have Volpe, they have the Martian, they have Spencer Jones. With this offseason being a fork in the road, which direction do you think they're looking to go?
Well, I think they made pretty clear they're trying to re-sign Bellinger, right? That's their number one priority. They need to get him in the fold. He was great last year, really played well in New York, very good defensively, which I think teams appreciate. No qualifying offer, so a lot going for him. His third free agency is going to be a lot, or potential free agency is going to be better than previously. So that's number one. I do think they'll look at starting pitching. It isn't a necessity like it is with some other teams. I think they could use some depth there. I think they'll look at probably Imai, as I'd mentioned already, in the New York Post. So I think they'll look at starting pitching. They have to rebuild the bullpen. Weaver is obviously a free agent, as is Williams. So considering that, they need to get some bullpen pieces, and they'd certainly like to get a lefty more than Hill was pretty good last year, and they got him back. But they'd certainly like to add some bullpen pieces as well. I think maybe Rice will, they'll have Bellinger as a potential first baseman. So I think that will cure it if Rice doesn't turn out to be most of the time first baseman. But I think he's going to play a lot. I think Rice is basically a full-time player and will be the backup catcher and then play first most of the time, provided he proves he can play there defensively. So, I mean, they're not in bad shape compared to a lot of teams. There are a lot of bullpen pieces out there. I think should be able to get some good ones. They've been very good at that. And I mean, I would say that since they're so determined on Bellinger, I'm not going to say it's likely, but they certainly have a decent chance to bring him back. I know he's going to get outside interest, maybe even from his old Dodger team, maybe from the Mets, maybe the Phillies. But I think he likes it in New York. His dad was a Yankee, and he certainly has it's a good stadium, better for him than Wrigley. So I think they have a decent chance at bringing Bellinger back, and that's really number one on their agenda.
That's what I assumed as much. Sticking in New York, the Mets. Alonso a free agent. I think Edwin Diaz is too. What do you think's going to happen there?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are their two priorities: is to bring back Diaz and Alonso, as well as, I mean, they're going to have to do something about the run prevention. They've certainly talked about that. In my mind, that means pitching. They're going to need to improve the rotation. They got to do something about the bullpen. Right now, they just have two lefties. They've got Raley and Minter. They need a lot of relievers. Diaz and Alonso, I think it starts with them, although they are into run prevention. I don't think they see any way to replace Alonso's 38 home runs, 126 RBIs from the right side. I just don't see how they do that. So I do believe that they're going to make a real concerted effort to bring Alonso back, much greater effort than they did last year, and it paid off last year anyway. They brought him back at a reasonable price. He did opt out, as did Diaz. I think Diaz. I think they've got a good chance to bring back Diaz. I think they have a good chance at Alonso, but in free agency, anything can happen. You can't be sure of anything, and certainly Alonso's going to have a decent market. Diaz is going to have a good market. Toronto's looking for relief. Baltimore, Boston, several teams are looking for a closer and first base. It's been a problem for free agents in recent years, but I do think that the Orioles have money to spend. I think the Red Sox need a right-handed bat, maybe even beyond Bregman, who I'm not going to assume anything's happening, but I would think they have a good chance to bring him back. But Alonso and Diaz have very good markets, but there probably is a pull to go back to the Mets and try to correct what happened last year, because that was a real disappointment in Queens.
And I got one final question sticking in the National League East. JT Realmuto is a free agent. The Phillies aren't necessarily a team with crazy catcher depth. Do you think they really push for Realmuto back? Do you think they go for someone else, look for the minor league system? What's the opinion on Philly behind the
I
plate?
think they've been upfront about that Schwarber and Realmuto are their priority. So like the Mets, they have two guys who are on their team, who've been mainstays on their team, that they're trying to bring back. That's the number one and 1A. Probably Schwarber won after 56 home runs, but certainly Realmuto is one of the better catchers still in baseball. I mean, he's certainly slowed down a little bit, but certainly they do want him back badly. They got a very good rotation, so they're well set there. I mean, they'll probably make a try for Suarez, but if they don't bring him back, they still have a pretty good rotation. I think they feel like Wheeler's going to be back and good. I think they feel like Nola's going to be better. Obviously, Sanchez was outstanding. Their rotation is in very, very good shape. They could maybe beef up the bullpen a bit. They did bring Alvarado back. They now have Duran for another year. This is a very solid, very good team. But I would say Schwarber's one, Realmuto 1A, Suarez another guy they're looking at. And I think in the outfield, they'd like to do something. So, they could be a fallback option on Bellinger. They could be they could go for Bader back. They could look at Tucker. They're a team that wants to win. They have an excellent owner in John Middleton, and they're serious about winning. So while I do expect that they will probably have success with at least one of the two between Schwarber and Realmuto, and maybe two out of the three of Schwarber, Realmuto, and Suarez, I think they're going to look at the outfield. This is not a cheap team. This is a team that wants to win, and certainly they've had a couple disappointments in a row now after making the World Series in Rob Thompson's first year there. So I think they're motivated to get stuff done. I think they'll probably trade Castellanos. I've seen where people write, well, maybe they'll release him. I mean, I don't think he needs to be released. I think he's worth something, and I think they will figure that out, whether they trade him back to his home in Miami or wherever. I think they'll find somebody to take Castellanos, and I expect they're going to have some success with their three big free agents. Like I said, I'm not going to be surprised if they sign two out of three of them, and I'm not going to put three out of three of them past them. Dave Dombrowski's there as the GM. He's not afraid to spend to win, and he has won in several places. I think he's won 2 World Series. I think he's been in 5 or 6. So he knows what he's doing. They know what they're doing. They're a serious team, and I don't expect that they're going to do nothing this winter. I think they're going to do some big stuff and have a very, very good team once again.
There we go. You heard it here, guys. That's going to do it. Episode 60 of the Playoff Push podcast. John, any final words?
Well, Jack, it's been a pleasure. Good luck to you. Now, what grade are you in?
I'm a freshman here at Penn State.
Oh, very nice. Okay, well, good luck. I'm a Wildcat from Northwestern, and I'm sorry we got your coach fired.
Man, he just got signed at Virginia Tech, so I'm happy for him. He's going to have a
He
nice
got another
recruiting
job.
pipeline. I'm happy for Franklin.
Didn't he get a $50 million settlement? I wasn't too worried about him.
Yeah, I mean, good news for us, actually, with his Virginia Tech contract. That buyout for us was cut from 48 down to 9. So we only paid him $9 million to get rid of him, which is
very reasonable. Well,
Big
I don't know.
safe.
Do you have a new coach yet? I recommend Pat Fitzgerald. He was an excellent coach at Northwestern. I don't think
We
he's
have a few
well.
guys. We don't know who it's going to be yet, but we have a few
All
guys on the
right.
radar. We'll see where it
Well, good
goes.
luck because I think people care at Penn State about the football team. So
Absolutely.
good luck.
Alrighty. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Episode 60. I'm your host, Jack Dobbins. Have a great rest of your night.